So here's our Pecha Kucha about peer pressure. Peer pressure is pressure from one's peers to behave in a manner similar or acceptable to them. Peer pressure is the influence of a social group on an individual. There are 3 types of peer pressure that we will be sharing with you today. They are good, bad, and digital.
So what is a peer? Well, a peer is an individual of equal standing with another who belongs in the same specific social group, sharing distinct characteristics with this group. Peers have great influences on each other because of how similar they act upon each other while they interact. So what is good peer pressure? Good peer pressure is being pushed around to do something you didn't have the courage to do before. Good peer pressure can be in a situation where your friends convince you not to do something where you're going to do because it was in your best interest. Good peer pressure is when you get pushed into do something that you didn't want to do and it turned out to be well.
So positive peer pressure can affect teenagers as well. Teenagers tend to follow the crowd. If they see their peers or friends studying and they're not, they're going to feel motivated and peer pressure to study as well because they don't want to be the one person who has bad grades. This is good because it will result in better grades and a smarter and more educated student. So on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, there is something called bad or negative peer pressure. Bad peer pressure is when you're being talked into doing something that you didn't want to do because your friend said that you should. Bad peer pressure is usually the result of wanting to be accepted by your peers or the people around you so that you're not different. So when you're a teenager, you are bound to have a peer pressure experience. One big example of peer pressure that occurs in teenagers is when somebody says this: "Hey dude, try this cigarette. It won't do anything to you." What they're doing right now is they're peer pressuring you into taking a cigarette, which is a horrible thing to do and can lead to death and health problems.
So why do people give in a peer pressure? Some give in a peer pressure because they want to be liked and they want to fit in, because they don't want to be made fun of and they want to be part of the group. Others give in a peer pressure because they want to try something new and are not using their common sense.
According to the Monitoring the Future survey, approximately 30% of 8th graders have used illicit drugs. The survey also states that teens with friends who do drugs and drink alcohol are more likely to do the same. They also have said teens who do drugs and drink alcohol are more likely to convince their friends to do it too. As a part of a survey from the insurance company Allstate, 89% of teenagers have said their parents have had the most influence over their driving habits. However, that same survey showed that when it comes to driving, peers still have a strong influence. About 44% of teens drive better without friends in the car, and 56% have said they talk on their cell phones while driving. Now, by this time, you might be thinking to yourself, how do I respond to peer pressure? Well, here, I'll give you some suggestions. The key to dealing with negative peer pressure is self-confidence. Be yourself, make your own decisions regardless of what others think. Listen to your gut. Learn to say no, and feel comfortable saying no to anybody, even if they're your friends. Now, as humans of our era, we are always on our phones, looking through the internet, looking at social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, everything. Constantly, we are seeing people who we want to be like. Skinny people, models. We are constantly peer pressured to look like them because that's how society looks at us. According to a survey from the National Center on Addiction and Substance Abuse at Columbia University, 75% of teens said seeing pictures of teens partying with alcohol or marijuana on a social networking sites encouraged them to do the same. 45% of these teens have said they have seen these party promoting pictures online.
So what is peer pressure reversal? Well, peer pressure reversal is doing what is right, standing out, not just fitting in, being proud of who you are, and being independent. Being independent means that you know what kind of person you want to be and what you want to be in the future. Always be courageous to do what is right. Now, there's a guy, and his name is Mike, and he smoked his first cigarette when he was 11 years old. He didn't want his friends to know that he smoked cigarettes because he didn't want to be the odd man out of the group. But he said once he started, he knew he couldn't stop because he was completely addicted, and he knew it was the wrong thing to do, but he still did it anyways.
Peers become an important influence on behavior during adolescence, and peer pressure has been called a hallmark of the adolescent experience. This happens because kids are changing into men, and when this happens, they want to adventure more and explore more. With this comes peer pressure to do more dangerous things or wild things, which is not always a good thing. Particularly in adolescence, peer pressure is widely recognized as a major contributor to the initiation of substance. This has been shown for a variety of substances, including nicotine, alcohol, and even smoking. This is when kids are growing up, so they decide to try new things that are more dangerous and more risky, which is why substance use occurs within adolescence. Sometimes peer pressure can lead to teens harming themselves through cutting or other dangerous fads or committing suicide. The Mayo Clinic says that teens with friends who self-injure are more likely to self-injure as well. A study from the Yale School of Medicine found that bullying often leads to suicidal thoughts in kids and teens.
There's peer pressure in lots of things, but one example is the pressure to steal. The consequences of stealing things lead to going to jail, and it can also change the way people think about you. And some things that can happen from stealing is it could go on your permanent record and change the value of you as a person. Another peer pressure is the pressure to fight. The consequences from fighting could lead to you going for jail for assault or killing someone, which could lead for you to go into jail for a very long time. And the pressure to fight at school could lead to you being suspended, which could be very bad on your reputation and could be on your resume when you apply to college. Another peer pressure is the pressure to have sex. Having sex before you are ready can lead to a pregnancy and STD, especially if you weren't properly prepared. This is especially bad for your body if you don't need these things right at the moment. Most importantly, it can affect you emotionally.